Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Holyoke, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Calhoun. And he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, Chicopee, and South Hadley, Mass. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
That's right, and this Congregational church is absolutely gorgeous.
Okay, and so today that's what you're going to be telling us about, right? The Second Congregational Church of Holyoke? Now, what is the history of the gorgeous Second Congregational Church?
All right, if you go back to 1852, it was across Dwight Street from the location of where City Hall would have been. And it stayed there until 1886. So it stayed there even when City Hall was built. So you'd have City Hall facing Dwight Street from one side and the Second Congregational Church facing it. And it was taken down so a marble building could be put up there. And where did they put the Second Congregational Church? Well, they put it on Maple Street, so it faced onto Maple and it had its side onto Appleton Street. So you had a new Congregational church there. Very beautiful church in the Romanesque style. So the windows were rounded instead of pointed. And that's important. Now, the history includes a fire. So in 1912, I believe, or 1919, there was a fire. And the fire just damaged and destroyed parts of this church. And so what happened was there was enough left, and there was also a new chapel by its side, and there was enough left to rebuild it. And so the chapel was in the Gothic style, the church was in the Romanesque style, and so they called the same company back that had built it originally, and this was 30 years later, and they came in and they made the church into a Gothic combined with Romanesque style. And it works. So if you look at it, some of the windows are Gothic and some are Romanesque, which is wonderful because the look is very unique to it.
And so what is the Skinner Chapel?
All right, so it's not really just one church, it's two churches because the chapel is enormous too. And they only touch in the back corner, so they're separate. The Skinner Chapel was made by the Skinner family to honor William Skinner, who had died in 1903. They made it in 1912, and in the windows, the stained glass windows honors one each member of the Skinner family. So it's really devoted to their family. Now, it has its own organ, own pews. It's actually used just as much as the church is being used. And when there was a fire in the church, they modeled the redesign of the church to look like the Gothic Skinner Chapel. And so, as you look towards the right of the church, it looks Gothic. As you look towards the left of the church, it looks Romanesque. So it's a very unique situation.
So now quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill in our listeners, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you're interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And they're perfect for fun and educational outdoor activities for the whole family, or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers, or just getting outdoors for the day. So now getting back to our interview, where was the first location of this church?
It was on Dwight Street, and why that's important is that Dwight Street was intended to be the most important street in Holyoke, in industrial Holyoke. So when in 1848 to 1850, designers were coming up with a scheme for Holyoke, they wanted Dwight Street to be very important. And that's where a lot of mills were based, that's where the train depot was based, the second train depot was based there too, and you had a street they considered number one. And when Town Hall and City Hall were built, they were built on Dwight Street, facing to Dwight Street. And that has changed. Since the 1880s, High Street has become the most important street in Holyoke. And that's because a lot of retail buildings, very gorgeous ones, went up on that street. So the first location was on the corner of High and Dwight, in the middle of the most important place of Holyoke. And it was facing onto on the other side empty ground, and that's where City Hall would become. And that probably was the demise, because you had a church right in the middle of the retail and politics section of Holyoke. And the Delaney family came along and they said, we want to build a marble building here. And that's the name of it, marble building. And it was gorgeous. And so you had to take the church out. Now the church was growing anyways, and where did it end up going? Up onto Maple Street at the corner of Appleton, but its back is on High Street. So it's still in that general area, about 3 blocks further up from where it used to be. And it's grown larger and more beautiful along the way. So it's gotten better. And
Now, so what is the future of this church and chapel?
okay, now they're very distinct. The church future, I hope they keep the church going, and they do have an endowment of money, so hopefully maintenance will keep going inside the church. It's very well kept. Its organ is very nice. It's a very active group inside of there that has a lot of outreach materials. They have their weekly masses, but they also have meals once a week. This is positive, and you can see on the outside they keep up the landscape, they keep up the maintenance, which is wonderful. Now the chapel belongs to the church at this point. Now this is important because if they ever try to sell that church, they cannot sell the chapel with it. The rule is this: the Skinner family built it in 1912, and they said the church can have it. But they made inside the deed the stipulation that if they try to sell the church, the chapel does not sell with it, because the Skinner family wanted that chapel forever to honor the Skinner family. And if the church is ever sold, the chapel at that point is given to the city of Holyoke. And the city of Holyoke cannot sell it. So it's a chapel forever held by the city, whatever happens to the church itself. And the chapel is in great shape. They made it beautiful. It has its own separate organ inside of it. You can have separate masses in that chapel as well as in the church. And they're very well connected in back, so you can walk from one to the other. And the fire did nothing to the chapel, so the chapel was totally safe, probably because it had separation between the two, and the fire did not get into it. So the future, I hope it will be positive, and even if it doesn't, at least the chapel forever will be a chapel devoted to the Skinner family.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. You can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214B@yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.